everyone. Welcome to the Arm Coach Podcast, episode 115. So, can I tell you something that took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out? I used to believe that certain people, certain situations, certain comments could literally derail my entire fitness routine. Like one passive aggressive remark from my sister, and suddenly I'm skipping my workout and eating chips on the couch, telling myself I'll start fresh on Monday. Does that sound familiar? I called it being triggered. The situation triggered me. The comment triggered me. My brother triggered me. The stress triggered me. The birthday party triggered me. The bad week at work triggered me. And here's the wild part. I genuinely believed that. I thought the outside world had some kind of control panel to my habits, my choices, my follow through. Like people could just walk up and press a button and all my standards would collapse. And maybe you believe that too. Maybe you've told yourself that you would be so consistent if it weren't for your family, your schedule, your stress, your cravings, your circumstances. But what if that's not actually what's happening? What if the thing you've been calling a trigger is something else entirely? That's what we're talking about today. So let me paint you a picture. You've been doing really well. You're showing up for your workouts. You're eating in a way that feels good. You're starting to feel proud of yourself again. Your arms are getting stronger. You can feel the difference, even if you can't fully see it yet. So something is working. And then you go home for the holidays, or you spend a weekend with your siblings, or you have dinner with that one friend who always has a comment about what you're eating. And suddenly it all falls apart. Right? You skip a workout, you eat things you weren't planning to eat, you drink more than you intended. You wake up the next morning feeling like you failed again. And you spend the next week trying to get back to where you were before that visit, that dinner, that situation happened. And the story that you tell yourself is, "Oh, they triggered me. That situation triggered me." Does that feel familiar? Because if it does, I need you to know something. You're not alone and you're not weak, but you are operating under a belief that is quietly costing you your consistency, your confidence, and your arms. Here's the truth of the day, and I need you to stay with me on this. People do not trigger your habits. Situations do not trigger your habits. Comments do not trigger your habits. Your thoughts do. Your brain got into the habit of thinking a specific thought when it's around specific people or situations. And that thought creates a feeling, and that feeling drives your behavior. That's it. That's the whole mechanism. And the reason this matters so much for your arms, for your workouts, for your nutrition is this. If something outside of you is the cause of your behavior, you are powerless. You are completely at the mercy of everyone around you. You can never be consistent unless the entire world cooperates with your goal. And we all know that is not a plan. But if your thoughts are creating your behavior, now you have somewhere to work. Now you are in charge. So let me introduce you to something called a cue. A cue is different from a trigger. A trigger causes something to happen, like a gun trigger. You pull it and the bullet fires. No choice, no pause, no option. A cue is a signal, a suggestion. Your brain goes, "Oh, I recognize this situation. Last time we were here, we did this." And it offers you the familiar thought, the familiar feeling, the familiar pull toward the familiar behavior. But here is what most women don't realize: a cue is not a command, it's not inevitable. It's a habit loop that your brain learned over time, and it can be interrupted. You still have free will. You still have the ability to notice the thought that just arrived and decide if you want to follow it. The difference between a trigger and a cue is the difference between being a passenger and being the driver. So, what does this actually look like in real life? Okay, let's say you go to a family gathering. Your brother pours himself a drink. Your sister loads up her plate. And somebody makes a little comment, something like, "Oh, you're not eating that anymore." Or, "I'm sure you probably need to go work out." The tone is light, right? It's innocent, maybe, but something inside you clenches. Now, here is what happens in most women's brain. That moment feels like a trigger. Those words hit a button, and all of a sudden you feel defensive or small, or like the old version of you who never followed through. And that feeling drives a behavior. You reach for the drink, you take the extra serving, you skip the workout the next morning because the whole visit left you feeling off. And then you blame the situation, you blame the comment, you blame your family. But here's what's actually happening: those words are a cue. Your brain hears them and immediately reaches for a familiar thought, a thought that's been practiced for years, maybe decades. And that thought creates a feeling, and that feeling drives a choice. The comment is not the problem. The thought your brain immediately attaches to that comment is where everything lives. So I have to get personal here for a second, because this is not just theory for me. This is something I have lived. And you need to know that I grew up heavy. I was the overweight kid in my family. And my siblings, they weren't cruel, they were my people. But we had a dynamic. We ate together, we drank together, we made food the center of everything. And for years, that was just our culture. That was just how it worked. And then I changed significantly. I competed in figure competitions. I built a coaching business around toned arms and healthy habits. I became someone entirely different from the girl who used to sit at that table eating her feelings and laughing it off. But every single time I went home, every single time I walked into that familiar space with those familiar smells and those familiar people, and someone made a comment like, "Oh, you don't eat that anymore," or "I'm sure you probably need to work out," with that little smile, I felt it, that pull, that gravity, like I was being dragged backward into who I used to be. Like the 200-pound version of me was still sitting at the table and she was tugging on my sleeve. And for a long time, I thought my family was triggering me. I thought the environment was triggering me. I thought the food on the table was triggering me. But here's what was actually happening: my brain had a deeply practiced thought that it ran every single time I was in that situation. And the thought was something like, "I don't fit in here anymore. I'm the odd one out. If I eat the way they eat, I'll still be one of them. If I don't, then I'm too good for them." Or sometimes it sounded like, "They're making fun of me. They don't believe in me. They think this won't last." And those thoughts made me feel like that little girl again, insecure and defensive, like I had something to prove or something to protect. And when I felt like that, I did one of two things. I either over controlled to prove I was different, or I gave in completely to prove that I was still the same. And neither of those was me living as the woman I was building. And here's the crazy part: the part That might sting a little for you guys. We spend so much time blaming our families, our environments, our stress, and our schedules for our inconsistency. And I get it. It really does feel like those things are causing the problem. But when we believe that, we hand every person in the room the keys to our consistency. We make our goals completely dependent on other people behaving in a way that supports us. And listen, nobody signed up for that job. Nobody is responsible for your habits except you. And that is exactly the most freeing thing I have ever learned. So here's what changed everything for me. I started hunting for the thought. Instead of looking outward at what was happening in the room, I started getting curious about what was happening in my head. And when I felt that familiar pull, that gravitational tug backwards, then I learned to pause and ask, what am I actually thinking right now? Because the pull is not the comment, the pull is the thought my brain immediately attached to the comment. And once I could see the thought, I could work with it. I could look at it. I could question it. And I could decide if it was even true. They think this won't last. Okay. Is that true? Or is that my old story? I'm the odd one out. Is that true? Or is that the 200-pound girl's interpretation of this moment? If I eat the way they eat, I'm still one of them. Wait, like that's not even a real thought. That's a fear. That's an old identity trying to stay relevant. When you can see the thought, you can stop being hijacked by it. And that is where your power lives. So let's make this practical. Let's talk about what this actually looks like the next time you're in a situation that used to derail you. Step one, notice the feeling first. When you feel that pull, that discomfort, that familiar urge to blow off your workout or eat in a way that doesn't feel good, stop for 1 second. Don't act, just notice. Something is happening and it's not coming from outside of you. It's coming from a thought that just fired. And then step two, get curious about the thought. Ask yourself, what did I just tell myself? What meaning did I just attach to that comment, that situation, that plate of food in front of me? Because there is a thought there. It might be fast, it might feel automatic, but it is there. Step three, decide if the thought is serving you. You don't have to argue with the thought. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to white knuckle your way through the situation. You just have to notice the thought and ask, is this actually true? And if I keep thinking this, what happens next? Because here's the thing, the thought creates the feeling, drives the behavior, and the behavior creates the result. If the result you keep getting is skipping workouts after family visits and spending a week trying to recover, you don't need a new workout plan. You need a new thought. So let me tell you how this played out for me specifically. I went home to visit my siblings, and it was a good visit, honestly. But there were moments, there were comments, little ones, the kind that they're not mean, but they land in a specific way. Oh, you don't eat that anymore. And I felt it immediately, that tightening in my chest, that weird mix of pride and defensiveness, and something that felt almost like guilt for having changed. In the past, my brain would have gone to, "Ugh, I'm making them uncomfortable. I'm being difficult. Just have one bite. Just have one drink. Just be normal for one night." And that thought would create this feeling of being torn, of being caught between two identities. And when I felt that way, my old self would win because my old self was practiced and my new self was still learning. But this time I caught the thought. I actually sat with it for a second and went, okay, right? Is that true? Am I making them uncomfortable? Or is that my interpretation? Am I being difficult? Or am I just different than I used to be? And the honest answer was, my siblings love me. Their comments are just what people say when someone they love has changed. It's not a judgment. It's not an invitation to go backwards. It's not a trigger. It's just a cue that my brain has learned to respond to in a very specific way. And knowing that, I felt different. I felt like myself, the version of myself I had worked really hard to build. I stayed. I enjoyed the visit. I didn't perform either identity. I just showed up as me and I made my choices. I didn't announce to them or apologize to them. And I woke up the next morning and I did my workout, not because I was disciplined, because I had interrupted the thought before it could run the show. So here's something no one in the fitness world is saying, and I think someone needs to. Starting over every Monday, it's not a discipline problem. Blowing your nutrition every time you visit your family is not a willpower problem. And skipping your workouts every time life gets hard is not a consistency problem. They are all thought problems. And we have been sold this narrative that if we just find the right program, the right meal plan, the right accountability partner, the right challenge, our habits will finally stick. But programs don't address the thoughts your brain runs when you're standing in your mother's kitchen. Meal plans don't tell you what to do when your sibling's comment sends you spiraling back to who you used to be. The only thing that actually addresses that, learning to see the thought, learning to interrupt the automatic loop before it runs to completion. That is the skill that changes your arms. Not a heavier weight, not a stricter diet, not more willpower. The ability to notice what you're thinking before it decides what you do next. Women who have finally cracked consistency, the ones who have toned arms, they don't hide, right? The ones who actually follow through, they do not wait for motivation. They got honest about the thoughts that were running their behavior. They stopped outsourcing responsibility for their habits to the people and situations around them. And they started getting curious about what was happening inside their own heads. And that's not a small shift. That is a complete identity upgrade. Because when you know that your thoughts are creating your results, you stop waiting for the world to cooperate. You stop waiting for your family to stop making comments. You stop waiting for your schedule to clear up. You stop waiting for stress to disappear before you show up for yourself, right? You show up anyway because you know the cue is coming and you know what to do with it. Okay, here's what I want you to try this week. The next time you feel that pull toward your old habits, that urge to skip your workout or eat in a way that feels like self abandonment, I want you to treat it as information rather than an instruction. It's your brain offering you a familiar thought. It's a cue, not a command. And I want you to get curious, not critical, not frustrated with yourself for being human, just curious. What just happened? What did I just think? What did I make that situation mean? Because the answer to that question is where your actual work is, not in a harder workout, in a clearer head. And here's the thing about becoming a naturally toned woman. This is it. This is the work. It is not just lifting. It's not just eating well. It is building the self trust to know that you can walk into any situation, any family gathering, any stressful week, any comment filled dinner, and you can still choose yourself. That is a woman with strong arms and an even stronger mind. I want you to take a moment here and I want to talk about identity because this is really what everything comes back to. The reason those family comments used to derail me so much completely is because I had not fully claimed my new identity. Part of me was still the overweight kid. Part of me was still waiting to be found out, waiting for someone to prove that this version of me wasn't real. It wasn't permanent, it wasn't actually mine. And so when my brother made a comment, when my sister looked at my plate, some part of me thought, see, they know. They know you haven't really changed. But here's the truth: identity is not something that's granted to you, right? It's not something that your family confirms. It's not something you earn after you hit a certain weight or a certain number of workouts. Identity is built through decisions, small ones, repeated ones. The decision to notice the thought before it hijacks you, the decision to do your workout even when the visit felt off, the decision to eat in a way that honors who you are now, not who you used to be. Every time you make that decision, you are building the woman you are becoming. And eventually, she is the one who shows up automatically, not because the situation got easier, but because you got clearer. And that is how naturally toned women are built, not through perfect circumstances, through practiced self trust. So I want you to sit with something before we close. Think about the situations, the people, the circumstances that tend to pull you off track. Your family, your schedule, stress, social situations that always end with you starting over on Monday. Now, I want you to ask yourself this: what is the thought I almost always have when I'm in that situation? Not the feeling. The feeling comes second. Go back to the thought because that thought is your cue. And once you can see it, you can interrupt it. You can question it. You can decide if you want to keep handing it the wheel. And the second question: who do I want to show up as the next time I'm in that situation? Not the old version of you who disappeared into the environment, the woman you are building, the woman who lifts with intention, the one who makes choices she respects in the morning, the one with strong arms and a stronger identity. Write it down if you need to, because the clearer you are about who you are, the harder it is for a comment or a cue or a family dinner to convince you otherwise. So here's what I know about you: you're not struggling with your arms because you're lazy. You're not inconsistent because you're broken. You're not starting over every Monday because something's wrong with you. You are doing exactly what human brains do: thinking familiar thoughts, running familiar loops, responding to cues the way you've been trained to respond to. But you're also here listening to this, which means you are someone who wants to understand, someone who is willing to look at the thing most people avoid looking at. And that is the beginning of everything. Change doesn't come from grinding harder. It comes from getting smarter about what's actually running your behavior. And now you know. The next time you feel that pull, that cue, that familiar gravity towards your old self, you will know what to look for. You'll know there is a thought underneath it, and you will know that you have the power to interrupt it. Your arms are being built right now, not just in the gym, in moments like this, in the decision to understand yourself better, in the choice to stop outsourcing your consistency to people and situations that were never responsible for it in the first place. This is the arm coach way. Now, if you're ready to stop restarting and start actually building, the arms and the identity you want, I want to invite you to check out Arms by Kristine. This is my program specifically designed for women who are done with the cycle of starting over. We build consistency, self trust, and yes, tone arms through simple habits and real mindset work. No punishment, no extremes, no more waiting till Monday. So the link is in the show notes. Go check it out. And if this episode hit home for you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it because somebody in your life is blaming their circumstances for their inconsistency right now. And they deserve to know the truth. Okay, I love you. I believe in you. And I will see you in the next episode.